Hello everyone, today we'll be taking a look at Ukraine, Israel, and other conflicts of interest. As of this recording, it is October 21st, 2023, and let's get started. First of all, we're looking at Ukraine. In the Klishivka direction, we can see that Ukraine has advanced seemingly a few hundred meters past its roadway up here, pushing what appears to be further into southern Bakhmut. Moving over to the Krasnohorivka direction, we can see that Russian forces have seemingly advanced also a few hundred meters, spreading out further into attempting to encircle the city of Avdiivka, as they've been trying to do for a few months here now. Although they have been, as of for the past few days, making some advances, but not without some relatively critical losses, as we'll take a look at later. And a few clarifications. Novodonetsk right over here, so we can see just perhaps a bit more of map clarification, and Prvomaisk, again, just some more map clarification, which every time I see map clarifications, I'm always not necessarily suspicious, but taking into consideration that we know that Ukrainian forces and Ukrainian intelligence is usually quite secretive and tries to be very misleading. So when we see map clarifications like this, I try to take it with a grain of salt that perhaps they're not necessarily map clarifications. Perhaps they were advances or assaults that took over perhaps days or weeks, and this is the accumulation of it, or maybe Ukrainian forces have pushed further lately, but they're not trying to, they're trying to keep it on the down low. So at least that's my take on it, but although perhaps most of the time it is just simply map clarifications. Now, taking a look at the live UA map, we can see here that Ukrainian military is reporting 68 combat engagements, which is about around what we've been expecting the past few days. And since the beginning of the Russian offensive, we've been seeing it has somewhat downturned lately, but it has been hovering around 70 combat engagements overall. But it is definitely significantly more than when it was during the Ukrainian counteroffensive, when there was only perhaps 20 combat engagements every day. So this is definitely a large uptick, but it is not necessarily as of before, but it is starting to downturn as of lately. I was taking a quick glance at equipment losses here. We're looking at Ukraine sitting at about 4,626 and Russia sitting at 12,656, just to give a rough estimate as to what the equipment losses on either side seems to be as of now. Taking a quick glance here over at some of the footage coming out of what's happening on the ground here in Ukraine. This appears to be a Russian column in the Avdiivka direction, and in this video, as we can see later on, this column doesn't seem to have as much luck in advancing. So this is reflective of the current Russian offensive and how it's been going in terms of in the Avdiivka direction and also in the Krasnohorivka direction. I don't want to show you too much combat footage, but this is essentially what it's been looking like as per Russian offensives lately. Now, taking a quick look here at Israel-Palestine and also Hezbollah over here, just taking a quick look at what's been happening. As we can see, more missile attacks by Hamas and more airstrikes by Israel, and as we can see and as we know, a few trucks having entered the Gaza Strip, but as we know, 36 aid trucks having entered, and we know that Gaza is home to about 2 million people. 36 aid trucks is not going to feed that many people who are completely out of food, water, and electricity. So as to how much this will truly help the people of Gaza, who knows? But it is perhaps more, I know some people have been saying it is more of a symbolic show of aid for the people of Gaza. Moving over here also as well to Hezbollah, we can see that there have been more airstrikes, missile attacks, also some appears to be some shelling by Hezbollah. Building off of that, I believe there are a couple of reasons to why Hezbollah has not fully stepped up its attacks, and those being because either they're waiting for Israeli ground forces to fully invade Gaza to try and catch them off guard, even though Israel seems to have fully garrisoned its northern border. That or Hezbollah is actually not as committed to this fight as they may be leading on to be, or are trying to portray. Just a quick clip over here of some of the missiles being fired by Hamas. So even though we aren't really hearing about it so much in the news, and as we know, we've been hearing more so about the 2 Americans who were released, there are still missile attacks and still missile strikes being carried out by Hamas. Another very interesting clip I found here, which does relate to as of the recent missile strike that happened on the Gaza hospital lately. Just taking a quick look here, we can see that as per some of the rockets that are fired, some of them do seem to peter out and fall, and there are a few later in the clip that we can take a look at. Here, see, there's another one that seems to be failing. So the idea that it wasn't necessarily an Israeli rocket strike, but rather a failed Hamas rocket seems to be more and more likely, and in all honesty, it is something that I personally believe to be more plausible in terms of just looking at this footage here. There are quite a few rockets that do seem to just fail and peter out and fall. So as to where these rockets go to, I mean, considering how densely populated Gaza is, it is quite likely that there are more civilian targets that are hit because of them. ISW is reporting here also that Iranian-backed militias have conducted 8 attacks over the past 3 days across the Middle East. So it doesn't seem to be that this entire Israel conflict is contained to just its immediate area, but also other places across the Middle East, such as Iraq. And as we've seen before, as well as the missile attack that happened crossover in Yemen, and also the attack that happened in Syria as well on an American base. This conflict does seem to be spilling over, but as to what that really entails, if it'll heat up or die down, who really knows? It's just been more or less sort of simmering on the side. Now pivoting away from Ukraine and Israel here, taking a look at a story from Somalia, an extremist group, Al-Shabaab, claiming for the attack for a bombing, and it is indeed quite a travesty. And also, as we know, Somalia, if you are somewhat familiar, has somewhat, at least in the past few recent years, not been as unstable, but is still a quite unstable place and region. So it is definitely a place to keep an eye on. So that's everything that I planned for today. If there's anything else anybody else wants to take a look at, any other regions of interest or other conflicts that I should take a look at that I'm not paying closer attention to, let me know. Other than that, thanks.